father! No!
No. The Judge and I are not related.
I did not have a really great intro to this, but that's Caleb Koho.
The whole world is watching. The whole world is watching. In reality, it's like 3 people, but 3 people are watching. 3 people are watching.
Hey, this was the 70s. People weren't really watching TV yet. Maybe it's the 60s. It's still at this point. Not quite. It's never explicitly said when the trial is happening.
This is very fair. Very fair.
Anyway, hi, that's Caleb Koho.
That's Caleb Bowman.
And this is FilmograFeed. We're 1 away from finishing Sorkin. This is Trial of the Chicago 7, Sorkin's penultimate film. And
his second directorial effort.
His second directorial effort. And I feel like I will actually go so far as to say I think this is Sorkin's most divisive film.
I would say it's up there for his most divisive film. I think the people who really like it, really like it. The people who really hate it, I don't get why, but they really hate it.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. Well, what would you call his most divisive?
I mean, here's my thing. I think when you go through it, there's no real haters for A Few Good Men. There's no real strong opinions on the American president. Like the few who really love it, and I don't know anyone who really hates it.
It's either like people who think it's good or people who think it's amazing.
Or people who think it's, and then like people who think it's fine. Like, I'm sure people think that the American president's fine at worst. Yeah. Charlie Wilson's worse the same way. It's like at worst you think it's fine. Like I think it's fine. I don't like it, but it's like whatever. And then like I don't know anyone who dislikes Social Network. I don't know anyone who dislikes Moneyball. I don't know anyone who out and out hates Steve Jobs or Molly's Game. So like this is the first Sorkin that isn't like Malice, where I know people who think this movie is bad.
Yeah. But I think the difference is Malice is a movie that you'd struggle to find people who say it's good.
True.
Like this, like, and even I will say, being the Ricardos, I think is a movie where the pretty much resounding reaction is meh. Like I think that's pretty much the overall.
The resounding reaction to being the Ricardos is okay. Like there's like I don't think anyone out and out hates that movie. And I don't think there's any, like, you're the only person I know who out and out loves that movie. So,
I'm maybe the only person in the world who out and out loves that movie. Let's be real.
To me, it's the definition of, like, mid in terms of, like, reception. It's a very middling received movie. This one, I think, to me is like the Last Jedi of Sorkin. It's like everyone is split on whether or not this is good or not.
Yeah, exactly. So, speaking of that, how the heck did this film get made, Koho?
I think that's what we should call every opening. We should do that from now on. Is how the heck did this movie get made?
How the heck fire did this movie get made? Oh, while he tells you that, I'm gonna go put some snickerdoodles in the oven. Okay.
Well, the year is 2006, and Aaron Sorkin, fresh off of I believe Studio 60, or in the process of Studio 60.
Studio 60 releases that year, I think.
It's in the midst of Studio 60. Either it's just come out. He's working on the Farnsworth invention thing, his big play movie dud, his big failed experiment. He's working on that.
It comes out in September, so he's either already released it or it hasn't.
He gets a call.
It has a lot.
He gets a call from a little-known filmmaker, you probably have never heard of him, named Steven Spielberg, to come to his house. And Steven Spielberg's like, hey, I want you to write a movie about the riots that took place at the 1968 Democratic Convention and the trial that followed. And Sorkin goes, I have no idea what that is. And Spielberg tries to give him an idea of what it is. And he goes, I still don't know what the hell you're talking about. When he leaves, he still has no idea what this is, like what happened. In July 2007, he writes The Trial of the Chicago 7, a screenplay that he says he was extremely proud of. He did a lot of research on. Like, he made sure that he knew what that was by the time he was done. Based on the conspiracy trial, blah, blah, blah. So Spielberg, Walter F. Parks, and Laurie McDonald come together to produce it. Walter F. Parks and Laurie McDonald, most well known for working with Spielberg on the Men in Black franchise and Catch Me If You Can. Those are his producing team. Laurie McDonald also, I believe, worked on some Spider-Man stuff, I believe. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I might be mixing up with Lawrence Ziskin. We'll see. Anyway, Spielberg was going to direct The Trial of the Chicago 7 based on Sorkin's screenplay. That was always the intent. Sorkin's first two people that he met with. For the role of Bobby Seale, he met and cast Will Smith. And for the role of Tom Hayden, he met with and had begun the process of casting in the role of Tom Hayden, Heath Ledger. Heath Ledger dies 2 months after the conversation. So he loses his Tom Hayden very early into production. He was like, Heath Ledger's my guy for that I want. The WGA strike happens. Everything's suspended. I actually don't. Heath Ledger and the WGA thing are flipped on timeline order, but still, it all happens around same weird area. They throw it away. Sorkin would rewrite the script for Spielberg, and the director was like, "I'm going to cast mostly unknowns besides Smith and Ledger because I want to keep the budget way down." It was then it sort of went into production hell. Spielberg announced he was no longer going to direct, but he'd stay on as an executive producer, which he did, which he does quite often for things that he doesn't end up directing. And instead, Paul Greengrass took over as director with Sorkin's script staying the basis. Right after this is coming right after Captain Phillips. However, he got in a big fight with Sorkin and the studio over budget and left 2 months later. So in 2020, Spielberg was like, let's come back to this. It was after 7 years of Spielberg doing stuff and Sorkin doing stuff. He goes, let's bring it back, essentially. Run it back. And he was, or I guess in 2019, it's like the end of 2018 into 2019. He's like, let's bring it back. In 2020, he reveals that they have worked on it and done it. But it was like 2019, they brought it back. Sorkin is announced to be taking over as the director at Spielberg's recommendation. The film was put on hold due to budgetary concerns, and it was revived. Paramount was going to pick it up. And then Sorkin was like, Spielberg saw Molly's Game and basically was like, you should make Chicago 7. And that the reason why they were like, we need to make this is Donald Trump's election. That was the big reason why they were like, we're going to do this now. They said that he said that at the time it was mostly just based on that. And when it came out, there's a lot of surrounding context that we do have to talk about because it matters. Because this ended up becoming an extremely relevant movie that Sorkin was like, I did not realize this would end up being that relevant. And he was like, it's unfortunate that it is, and it hurts me that it is, but it's wild that it is. Because in 2020, we can talk about the weirdest, most depressing year in the history of cinema. And just in the human race. Specifically, the George Floyd and Breonna Taylor murders. Those are the two that really paint the narrative for this movie and its importance. In post-production, that's when all of the protests started sweeping the nation over that. And he was, and Sorkin himself talked about, like, it was really profound to him, to the point where he went back and re-edited something into the film, which was he went back in and re-edited the shutter shot, quick cuts of Hampton's crime scene into the movie. That wasn't there before. Hampton's death was in the movie, but the quick cut of the crime scene he added after the murders to be like, all right, I think this matters. So in 2018, the first two people that were cast were Sacha Baron Cohen and Eddie Redmayne. They made it all the way through the production. In November of 2018, they found their Bobby Seale in Jonathan Majors, a young unknown named Jonathan Majors. They then cast in 2019 Alex Sharp, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Seth Rogen were part of the cast.
Who and
then Rogen?
Hold on, who was Seth Rogen supposed to be?
I'll tell you in a minute. They also said Michael
Gary Rubin.
So Michael Keaton was considered for a role as well. They said they couldn't confirm whether he would end up joining it or not. In August of that year, they landed Langella and Rylance, and in September, Seth Rogen dropped out and was replaced by Jeremy Strong. So that was yes. In October, Jonathan Majors dropped out because he decided instead to go work on a different film that was released a year later, a little western called The Harder They Fall, and a TV show called Lovecraft Country. Those were the two projects he decided to leave and go do instead of Trial of Chicago 7, where he was replaced by Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, who was coming off of Heat with Watchmen. Kelvin Harrison Jr. was added along with Michael Keaton, William Hurt, J.C. McKenzie, Max Adler, and Ben Schenkman. William Hurt would inevitably be replaced by whoever the fuck that random guy is.
Wait, which character was
The
William Hurt supposed to play?
Joseph Gordon-Levitt's guy.
Oh, and he gets replaced by the dude who's also in Molly's Game.
Yes, the guy from Molly's Game replaces William Hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So
I wonder if that's because Sorkin didn't want to work with Hurt.
Probably not. Like, to be honest, I don't think Sorkin made that call, and he made the call to replace him.
Yeah, because because we know that Sorkin
he and Marlee Matlin are very close.
Are very close, and I'm guessing Marlee Matlin was like, "Hey, do what you want," but William Hurt was very bad to me, and yeah. And I would not be surprised if that's why Hurt was kicked off the project. Also, Hurt just had a reputation for being difficult to work with and kind of an a-hole.
Yeah, I believe it. So then they began filming in 2019, filming in Chicago and New Jersey, and a lot of it's actually shot in Hoboken, which is funny. Production budget $35 million. $11 million of that went towards just the cast. They get Daniel Pemberton back to compose, who worked on Molly's Game, because he was like, yo, I really dig you. We're bringing you back. They had 3 original songs written, including British singer Celeste's Hear My Voice, which was the lead single for the album and was submitted for and nominated for Best Original Song. Other promotional single is Blood on the Streets. I don't really know who recorded that, but it's listed here. So yeah, that was the music. That was the production. And we'll get more into more of it as we go along, because I think there's some fun additional stuff throughout the show that we can talk about. But yeah, let's get into this shit.
Yeah, I think no better place to start than at the beginning. Well,
actually, I just realized I think there's one big piece of context we should talk about before we get into the plot.
Okay.
I just realized I think we should talk about, because this is a big part of this movie. And the story of this movie is COVID-19 and the 2020 pandemic. I think we should at least touch a little bit on that as a group. So for that Oscar season, this was touted as a big front runner. We didn't even know if it was going to come out. Paramount sold it to Netflix, but there was a bidding war for that. Do you remember the bidding war for the Trial of Chicago 7?
I do not.
It was like Amazon, Apple, Hulu, and Netflix were like, we will spend money to get this movie so that we could be in the Oscar race and have a movie like of this caliber out. And like Netflix won, but like Netflix bought it for $56 million.
Wow.
Like they dropped a hefty chunk of change to have this in their fall slate. Do you remember Netflix's like 2020 slate of movies was just like
they had Mank, they had Trial. Did they have Minari? No, they didn't have.
They had To Five Bloods.
They had To Five Bloods. They had.
They didn't
have Sound.
No, Sound of Metal is Amazon. Let me bring this up, because this was,
I know,
honest to God, a wild year. They had a lot of movies in the running where it was like, man, they had like 4 or 5 movies nominated.
They had like Caroline. Were they Hillbilly Elegy?
No, they weren't. Let me see. I'm going through their stuff here.
They had
The White Tiger. Yeah, they did. They had I Care a Lot. They had The White Tiger. They had Over the Moon, the animated movie. They had the documentary Time. They had the documentary Crip Camp, I believe. They had My Octopus Teacher.
They had Octopus.
They also. Well, here's the thing. They won animated short, live action short, documentary feature, and they were not. And the only one they didn't win was animated feature of that little run of 4. Because their live. Do you remember what won animated short that year?
Animated short was because we watched all of
it together.
Oh,
we watched it together.
Oh, yes, I remember what won that year.
If Anything Happens, I Love You.
Mm-hmm.
And do you remember what won live action short?
Live action short. Yes, because we were so.
It was the worst of the 5.
It was the worst of the 5. It was Two Distant Strangers. It was Two Distant Strangers.
So yeah, they won live action short, animated short, and documentary feature. Were all just Netflix just went, I'll buy it, and they owned it. They had To Five Bloods, which I remember that whole year, that race where Delroy Lindo was like so close to a Best Actor nomination, and like Boseman was double nominated at SAG, like for lead and supporting for To Five Bloods and Ma Rainey, like, and he was in the conversation for supporting actor and being double nominated. He was in the running for that. They had Eurovision, so they got a song nomination. They had The Life Ahead, which was like an actress potential. It was really a battle of like, it was Netflix versus Apple in 2020. Because Apple came out of nowhere that year. Because they came out of nowhere and didn't have a picture nomination, but they had they were the ones who did. Oh yeah, Netflix also had Pieces of a Woman. I forgot. That was another big one.
Well, to be fair, Hulu won the big money. Hulu had Nomadland, so they won the big money.
Hulu did have Nomadland. Hulu also had Minari.
Hulu was Minari.
So they were doing okay. Hulu was Minari. But it was and Amazon had Sound of Metal, and then I don't know who had Judas. Amazon also had Borat's subsequent movie film, which was like huge.
I think HBO had Judas.
HBO had Judas. I remember that. It was their only one. Promising Young Woman was the one movie in that round where it was like, and The Father were the two where it was like, we don't belong to anyone. We are theatrical films, which was why I think they did pretty well. But yeah, it was like Apple had nothing really above the line, but then like below the line they had Wolfwalkers, and they had Mole Agent documentary. They had a bunch of the shorts. They had Greyhound, and they had like a lot of the below the lines were them, which was kind of funny. Midnight Sky. But that was such a weird year where it was like Chicago 7 got 6 nominations and then won nothing.
Yeah.
And like, do you remember? I know for us, do you remember like when a movie dropped, it would drop at like midnight for no reason because everyone and their mother's at home. So like, at least for me, I was at home all of 2020. So like, I like vividly remember my sleep schedule was so fucked because I would stay up till midnight, watch the movie, and then sleep till 2 the next day, and then do that over and over. Where it was just like I remember waiting up for this.
Didn't we watch this together? Right,
we might have, like on a StreamYard call. Like we had the StreamYard call going, but we were watching it on our TVs.
I call me crazy. I think we watched this like the first time we watched this, it was you, me, and Scully.
I think that's true.
Maybe someone else, and we all watched it like together, and that was like the first. Right. At like midnight.
I just remember waiting for this. I remember. Yeah, I remember it was this for me. It was like Palm Springs was huge for me this year. There's a lot of movies that like came out, like when they came out, where it was like, okay, time to watch this. It was like an event for me. It was like Thursday or Friday night at midnight. And it was time to watch Trial, or it was time to watch, whatever, Nomadland or whatever. And like, I just remember this was like huge. I remember this was in October. So like things were opening up a little bit where it was like, okay, you can kind of leave your home a little bit. At least in my area, it was like, you can kind of leave your home. But it was like, no one was really doing that because like you weren't really working anywhere but home, or like there was nowhere to go but home. So it was weird. But I remember Trial was just like, I don't know. Every time I watch Trial, I don't necessarily think about the time period in which it came out. But the more you think about it, this movie does a weird thing to me where it's like I think about this movie. Like when I think about a lot of the 2020 movies where it's like I think about Trial, or I think about Judas, or I think about the things that were nominated that year that I will go back to, and I'm like instantly transported back to quarantine and stuff like that. And like it's not like it was we're in that weird spot now where I'm not going to call it nostalgia for quarantine, but like I like definitely had like good times in quarantine with our
Oh
group.
yeah.
So,
Oh yeah.
like I
No,
will
it's a
remember
weird
those
thing where
movies.
here's the thing. We were at an age where quarantine wasn't that bad.
It wasn't the worst thing for us.
Like it wasn't the worst thing ever because like we had each other and we like would just all hung out all the time. And like
Yeah, like
and I'm
here's the thing. The
introvert.
moment the world
Here's the
the
thing.
moment the
You
world
probably
opened
had a
up again.
what? Go ahead.
Oh, I was saying like the moment the world opened up again and we all didn't hang out every day, it
Yeah.
was like kind of a weird culture shock thing for all. Where it was like I used to be like I hung out with you, Cody, Tim, Scully,
Mhm.
Spence, like all y'all. I'd hang out with all of y'all like every single day. Sometimes I'd bounce between 4 or 5 different calls over the course of like 13 hours and hang out with a bunch of different people throughout the day because I had nothing else to do. And then like when the world opened up and we all went back to real life, and and like right now it's like I see you guys like once, twice, 3 times a week maybe. And
Yeah.
that's still like to me it's
Oh, you're cutting out, buddy. Are you there?
and it's weird that we all didn't like kill each other.
Yeah, I think I get what you're saying. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Are you there?
Yeah, yeah, I'm here.
Okay. You're
Are we
cutting out
frozen?
kind of
Or are you
bad for me,
frozen?
but you're
You're like
just
lagging for me.
I think it's you leave and come back.
Yeah.
I'll start talking about the movie while we wait for Koho. So yeah, because I think we finished with all the pandemic stuff. This movie opens, and this opens with a killer opening. We get, first we get just historical footage of context of where we are, who's died, that, JFK's been killed, MLK's been killed, Vietnam War's going on, all this stuff. And then we start to get inner slices of all the important players within the movie. And it is so, 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 so cool of interspliced footage of all the important players within the movie. And all of their words start to sort of, but not really, finish each other's sentences. And I think that kind of like underlines how unique the dialogue, like how unique the perspectives are between everybody, and how all these people kind of have differing ideas on what the actual goal going into Chicago is, which I think is so neat and just a really unique way to explain that. So yeah, Koho, I think it's me. So
Oh,
you
sorry.
start talking about this opening. I'm gonna leave and come back.
Okay. So my favorite piece of that opening is that we get John Carrollage, who's like super active, is like, what happens if they get calmly and I will very calmly and carefully. And he like cuts, or he's like, I think he does he's like, I do what I always do. I very calmly explain to them, and then it cuts to Bobby Seale and he's just fuck the motherfuckers up. And I think that's my favorite one, that where they just like completely cut together. I love it. I think so. I want to highlight how great this ensemble is real quick. Like one of the best. I think that Yaya is so great as Bobby Seale. Every time I watch it, it still blows me away. Like, it's wild to me there wasn't at least 2 supporting actor nominees out of this movie. Like, Sacha Baron Cohen to me is the person to represent the ensemble, because I think he is very good and very funny, and I like him. I like him a lot. I don't know if I'd call him the best performance, but he's my favorite performance, so I don't mind him being the one to represent them all. Like I that was such a huge year for Sacha Baron Cohen too, for him to be like nominated for acting for the first time and then nominated for writing Borat too. And it was his third Oscar he got his second and third Oscar nomination the same year. It was kind of fun. And he almost would have gotten a picture nomination if Borat got in for picture also, which was really a possibility too, like a very big possibility. It was like, didn't it win the PGA? It wasn't just nominated. I think it won the PGA.
It didn't win the
Like,
PGA. It did not win.
I think it did.
It did not
I'm
win
looking this up
the
real quick.
PGA, Koho.
I think it did. I remember it being weird.
Almost certain it did not win the PGA. I am certain because it was Nomadland. Nomadland won the PGA.
See, I think Nomadland won like a lot of things. I don't know if it won the actual award that year. Oh no, I'm wrong. Okay, it was Nomadland. But Borat was nominated. Fair.
I think the thing with the fact that Borat won the musical or comedy award.
Well, I knew that happened because I'm still pissed with that. I'm still mad about that because it beat Hamilton. That's bullshit.
What did you say?
Borat was nominated for the PGA. I remember. I'm still mad that Borat won the Golden Globe because it beat fucking Hamilton, which is still stupid. So like, but Borat was nominated for the PGA. I'm right about that. It was Borat, Ma Rainey, and One Night all got in there, and the ones that were in the actual Oscar group that weren't in the nominees, Father missed, and that was Father was the one that was on one out that didn't get a PGA. But yeah, Borat was in play for picture. It was a possibility. But anyway, Sacha Baron Cohen's I think Sacha Baron Cohen's really good in this. But to me, Yahya is phenomenal. Like Yahya Abdul-Mateen II has a moment, and we'll get to that moment later, but like truly incredible moments in this, especially at the beginning. I think I would go so far as to say this is probably my favorite Mark Rylance performance.
I would agree with that. I was thinking about that while watching the movie.
I don't love him in things, but I do think he's actually quite good here. I remember he was like on the odds makers for supporting actor for this for a very long time until they moved Sacha to supporting. Because I remember for a very long time they were saying Sacha would get pushed for lead, and like I'm glad he didn't because there really is no lead for this movie. But if you were gonna pick one person to be the lead, Sacha's probably the argument. Him and Eddie are the two that
I think Redmayne is honestly like who you shove in the lead.
Like, right. I think you could have honestly. On the FYCs, you could have honestly put both in lead, and Sacha probably would have had a case to still probably crack that 5 and get in, and then you would have left more room for supporting people to show up. I think Yahya.
I don't think he gets in lead. I don't think he gets in lead. Like I
think he'd be. I think he would beat Oldman. I think Oldman would not make it if Cohen was there.
Nah.
Oldman's already the 5th place. Like he was already on the fringes, where it was like if someone doesn't get in on Oscar morning.
Here's the thing.
Everyone was like, if Delroy Lindo gets in, it means Oldman doesn't.
Yeah, I agree that Oldman's on the fringes, but I think Oldman still takes out Cohen. And my reasoning is they nominated Mank for picture, and that is a very like actor like centric movie, and I think they would nominate him based off of that. And I think Oldman and Mank is a very good performance. But anyway.
I think if Sacha's in lead, they put Sacha in because they love Trial of Chicago.
I don't feel like Yoon was more likely to be the 5th man than Oldman.
If you look at all the precursors, Oldman was the one that missed like 5 precursors, or like 3 or 4 of the precursors.
To be fair,
they did 7 to
go by that math, Lady Gaga should have been nominated for House of Gucci. Like
she was. I maintained it is still weird that she didn't, according to precursors.
But I'm saying, if that's your math, then. Like Lady Gaga is.
I'm saying by math purposes, it is a situation where, especially back then, Oldman was clearly the 5th. Like clearly the 5th. Ewan and Minari hit a stride in January and rode it to the end. Like Minari, if it came out 1 month sooner, could have gotten close enough to make a dent in Nomadland. Minari was huge in 2020. So like Ewan was in. Mank was dead in the water by the end of December. Like, Oldman was losing steam in December. Like, if Mank was really that big, then they would have absolutely nominated for Jack Fincher for screenplay because that was the real heartfelt story of that whole campaign that they did by it. So, like, I think because I remember it was like Lindo or Oldman for the 5th. But I think if Cohen was in lead, Cohen would have cleared both of them out and gotten it because they were going to nominate. Like, to me, they were going to nominate SBC no matter what. Whatever category he was in, they were nominating Cohen because they love him and they want to give him an acting nomination. So I would say, but like to me, Rylance was great. I really like JGL in this. Weirdly enough, like he's not like flashy, but he has a couple great moments in this where like when they approach the bench and his the guy who's clearly supposed to be William Hurt and then isn't. Is like trying to stop. He's like, "Sir, please." Like he's so good. Like he has such great. I don't know. JGL, weirdly enough, is like you could see a world where they made him more of a lead in this, and it'd be like really solid too.
I think JGL, like, this is such just an interesting role for AGL, especially if we like look at his career, because like he used to be like in the like late 2000s, early 2010s, he was like a lead, and then like it's not like he was in a bunch of bombs or anything. He just decided to like stop making movies for a while and decided to do like that hit record or whatever it was. And like make his little reality show.
He did theater and his reality show and stuff like that.
Yeah. And then like now, and then it's just weird that time had gone by so fast. And then when he came back, it was like, oh, we just skipped straight to JJL's no longer your leading like charming boy anymore. He is like, it's like if Tom Hanks did his 80s comedy stuff and like started to maybe, get into your early 90s more dramatic stuff, and then just disappeared and he didn't do another movie till he did Catch Me If You Can, where he played
kind of accurate.
The sort of antagonist, but who's really a good guy, which is what I think JGL is in Chicago 7. Like it's
I think he's really good. I think the person who is really good as being someone that you're just like, fuck, this guy is Frank Langella. Like, fuck this guy. He's so good at being an absolute cock. And I know you want me to start talking about Jeremy Strong, who I think this is Jeremy Strong's best performance, but yes.
It's fair. But we'll talk about Langella for a second, because Langella is so great at just making you hate him. He's great at this. He's great at that as in Frost Nixon. Like he's just really great making you hate him, but without seeming like a cartoony, over the top supervillain. Like still feeling like he could actually
point out Langella's also really good at doing that in Good Night and Good Luck. Like he's not in that very much, but he does it really well in Good Night, Good Luck. And he also does it kind of really well in Draft Day too. Like he's like quietly really good at Draft Day also. It's kind of like nuts. Like he's really good at popping in and being a dick. Yeah.
Did you know that he played Skeletor in the Masters of the Universe movie?
I think I knew that. I think I knew that somewhere in the recesses of my mind. Yeah.
That's just a weird thing to me that just does not make sense. He's also great. He's not like, you're not supposed to hate him, but he has that similar function in Superman Returns.
True. He does. He's actually almost too mean to be Perry White. Like he's borderline not the right choice. Because what you need is what J.K. Simmons does with J. Jonah Jameson. And they clearly wanted that because Perry White is supposed to be a nicer J. Jonah Jameson, a more altruistic J. Jonah Jameson, someone who's not as angrily hard-edged, but can be tough. And a little tough on Clark, but not like outright mean to Clark the way J. Jonah is to Peter. And Langella's not good at that. Langella's not the right choice for that. He threads the needle kind of okay, but literally J.K. Simmons would have been better to be Perry White too. Now that I think about it out loud.
Yes. I'm also realizing that Langella actually probably would have been a really good Lex.
Maybe when he was younger.
Like for sure, he was like a little too old. But like if you do like a 90s Superman movie.
Well, my issue with him then is Langella needs to be charismatic. Like if you're Lex Luthor needs to be someone that can charm the world into thinking he is an entrepreneur, a billionaire doing good for the world, but he's also a bad person, like secretly.
Fair.
So I don't know if Langella can pull that off. Langella could do what Gene Hackman does, where like Gene Hackman's just out and out, I'm a crazy person to the public from minute one. So, or Eisenberg, but not Eisenberg's thing. I would love to see Frank Langella do Eisenberg's take from BBS, though. I think that'd be so wild.
And now,
all right. Go off on talk about Jeremy Strong.
Actually, before we talk about Strong, I want to talk about another. I think I'll go so far as to say as this actor's best performance, Eddie Redmayne.
It is Eddie Redmayne's best performance, and I'll stand by it.
Yeah, That's the thing is I think this movie is really great at taking two actors, Mark Rylance and Eddie Redmayne, who I don't really love all that much and don't think deserve their Oscars, and getting really good human performances out of them. And I think they're both very good. But yes, Jeremy Strong, everybody, one of the greatest actors working today. And one of the most interesting actors working today. And this is easily his most different role. This is the role that is like unlike anything he does. Like, because I think you can definitely like put a little web around like every other Jeremy Strong performance and connect it to Kendall Roy. Like, you can connect Dean Keith in Molly's Game to Kendall Roy. You can connect his character in The Big Short to Kendall Roy. You can absolutely connect what else is Jeremy Strong in? I'm blanking. But like you can connect like everything that Jeremy Strong does back to Kendall Roy, except for Jerry Rubin, who is just such a completely different character and is so funny and so like
and super charming.
Yeah,
just armingly charming.
Yeah, like really charming. Like this could have been like. Here's the thing, I love Rogan. Rogan's great at reading Sorkin dialogue. I'm glad that Rogan didn't do this, and it's purely because I feel like if Rogan would have done it, he would have leaned into the comedy a little too much, and I think it would have felt too much like a Rogan stoner character. And I think with Jeremy Strong playing a stoner character, he brings like this depth behind it while still doing like the stoner comedy stuff. And I think that's like a really unique take on it, and it's like why it works so well. It's a really good performance, and I think it's the best performance in the movie, though I'm reconsidering that because on this watch I was just astounded by Yahya Abdul-Mateen. Like to the point where I'm actually, not only am I considering nominating him, I'm debating like whether or not. Because here's the thing. I don't feel like he's my winner. But at the same time, I'm putting it up against the person who is my winner, who is Daniel Kaluuya in Judas and the Black Messiah, which is a semi-similar. I mean, it's a similar performance in that it's two Black Panther heads, and literally Daniel Kaluuya.
A towering performance from Kaluuya, though. It's a
and that's the thing.
Very big
it's an issue of I have not watched Judas and the Black Messiah since 2021. And
I'll say this about that year is that supporting actor class is fucking brutal. Except like I don't love Racy. I think Racy's my clear fifth. Like he's fine, but like Lakeith, great. Kaluuya, phenomenal. Odom Jr., phenomenal. Sacha Baron Cohen, super fun.
Look, going back though, Lakeith, great. Category fraud. He's great.
Yes.
Should not be in supporting. He's fantastic though. Should have been in lead where I don't nominate him. So I get why he got put in. Though that is so weird. It is the weird.
That was such a weird shock.
Yeah, like they just like he was campaigned in lead, and then just nomination morning comes and supporting actor Lakeith Stanfield. I mean, good for him. He's awesome.
What was awesome was everyone sitting here going, "Who's the fifth? Who's the fifth? Who's the fifth?" And he was the last name read because of S. Mm-hmm. And he was not nominated anywhere.
Yeah.
And so when he showed up, it was like, holy shit, that's amazing.
And I think that's the reason why everyone thought there was a chance that Michelle Williams was going to go into supporting for Fabelmans.
Exactly. Lakeith's thing completely changes Oscar campaigning forever to the point where it's like, you don't know. You just don't know.
Yeah. But that being said, I think the difference was, and why I was confident that Michelle Williams was not getting into supporting, and the difference was Stanfield was not nominated anywhere. Williams was being nominated into lead everywhere else. Like, had Williams not gotten a nomination anywhere in lead, I actually would have I would have thought that the possibility of her getting into supporting would have been very high.
Ever.
Anyway, I'm sorry to go off on a tangent, but I'm still mad. Because if Williams puts herself into supporting actress, she wins.
Yeah, she wins.
She wins. She beats, and she takes away the Oscar for I'm sorry. I love you, JLC. I love you. You're great. You're not an Oscar. You should not be an Oscar winner, at the very least, not for this. Not for Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'm sorry. You just shouldn't be.
Where you are, without a doubt, the worst nominee in your category.
The worst nominee in your category by far.
Yes. Debatably the worst nominee in any category that year, potentially.
No. Anna de Armas.
Oh, sorry. Here's the thing. I like a PTSD block that De Armas was nominated. You're right.
That's fair. No, that's completely bad. Here's the thing.
I blanked that blonde.
JLC is an undeserving nominee, but I wouldn't call her a bad nominee. Anna de Armas is a bad nominee.
Yes, awful nominee.
Like, I put JLC on the level of J.K. Simmons in Being the Ricardos. Undeserving. Should not have been nominated. Not bad, though. Like, they're not giving bad performances, just unremarkable performances.
Yeah. So, okay. So, going back to this, I think you actually, now let me bring up Juice and Like I think we have to bring up the comparisons that both of these are Best Picture nominees that feature the same character in both years. And it's sort of just unfortunate that Kelvin Harrison Jr., who I think is good, like quite good. I don't think he's just not in it enough to be notable enough as Fred Hampton. I think it's funny there's two Best Picture nominees in the same year where Fred Hampton is a significant character, and you have Daniel Kaluuya and Kelvin Harrison Jr., who are two of our best young African American actors working right now in those roles. And Kelvin Harrison Jr. is quite good, but Kaluuya is just amazing in his, just super remarkable.
I also think it has to do with how both of those characters are written. Like Kelvin Harrison Jr.
I was going to say
is written very differently than Shaka King writes Fred Hampton's. Fred Hampton,
and I think the other thing to point out, and I think it does matter, is that Aaron Sorkin is a white man, and Shaka King and his team are African Americans, and they have very different perspectives of that person, and the perspective that Ryan Coogler as a producer, Shaka King as a director, and that team brings is much more vibrant and urgent and like powerful because it's about Fred Hampton. Whereas like the Trial of Chicago 7 is not about Fred Hampton, he's just in it. Bobby Seale is done really well as one of the supporting players. But I think the perspective of that character changed, like the view of that character changes because the race of the two writers are very different.
I also think, I agree, but I think the motivation was, or maybe not motivation, but I think it's that Sorkin is kind of handling Hampton with kid gloves a little bit. I think he's worried about upping the characterization too much and feeling like a stereotype, and also I think he wants to differentiate Hampton from Bobby Seale. Yeah, because I think if you slot Daniel Kaluuya into that movie and you just have Daniel Kaluuya's performance as Fred Hampton in the Kelvin Harrison Jr. Fred Hampton role, it doesn't work because what Yahya Abdul-Mateen is doing, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II is doing as Bobby Seale fits a similar ilk.
So I would push back and say I don't necessarily think it would be bad. I actually think it would elevate that role a lot, but I also think the issue is that you would then go, why the fuck is Kaluuya not in more of the movie? That would be the issue. He would be. I think he'd be distracting. I don't think he'd be bad.
I wasn't saying he would be bad, but I'm saying that I think that if he's next to Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, I feel like you don't like the characterization between those characters is too similar.
I don't agree with that.
That's fair.
So yeah. Anyway. Now
I feel like the movie portrays Chicago 7 portrays Hampton as more cool-headed. Like it's kind of the more like cool-headed than Judas does.
Well,
not that Judas portrays him as not cool-headed, but I just
Judas has definitely moments where he is cool-headed. And I think
I'm not saying he's not. I'm saying that like I just think it's hard to explain, but I just think it's a different characterization.
That's true. But I think the movie. So like, we talked about the opening, and then we get into the trial, into the actual trial,
Mhm.
and the court like introduction where everyone comes in. And it's like this is this person, wine glass, da, 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 and they go through that. I think my favorite part of that is and everyone Payson makes fun of this all the time. I don't know why. Where Jeremy Strong catches the egg when they're walking in, and he's like, "Whoa, how'd you learn to do that?" He's like, "Experience." And they're walking along. He's just like, "You know, through the egg, do you?" He's like, "Not a clue." I like that. I think
Right?
these two have a really great relationship with each other.
Oh, I do too. I love their dynamic so much. Why does Payson not like that?
I don't know. He has a weird thing where he's like, "Oh my god, Jeremy Strong actually caught an egg," and like quotes it the same way that like people are like, "Did you know Leo really broke the glass and cut his hand bleeding?" As if they're the same,
Oh,
and I
okay.
don't know why.
Well, okay. I think that's just that he hates that a lot of people bring up that happened. I don't think he hates
Fair.
that moment. He just hates. He's probably just heard it a lot, and he hates hearing it. That's just what Payson does. Anyway, but yeah, no, I love the dynamic between Hoffman and Rubin. It is so fun because you'd worry that their dynamic would be too samey, but like that's the thing is I think it's actually very central that you have Rubin there because Rubin makes Hoffman look more. I don't know if logical is the right word, but more controlled. Rubin is like the more chaotic, and Hoffman seems more professional at the very least, or more precise. Whereas Rubin just kind of feels like he's there for fun.
Definitely, and I think Sacha Baron Cohen. This is the moment where I really do want to dive into Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yeah,
because I do think he is really remarkable, and I think he deserves his Oscar nomination. I think he's very, very remarkable as this guy who is constantly pushing the buttons of everyone else, but also I think he's very good at pretending like he's not.
Your mic's cut now.
Oh, okay. Am I okay?
Oh, you're back.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that he does a very good job of pretending like he's not afraid, like nothing phases him, and like he's just here to needle and push. But the needling and the pushing, the more you go on, especially when he and Redmayne have their confrontation towards the end, is his own defense mechanism for his own fear and like self-loathing. And I think that that's conveyed so well by SBC throughout the entire movie. I think this is up there for what might be his career best performance for me. It's this and probably the first Borat. Like I think he's so good as Borat in the first one that's hard to argue. But like he's so remarkably like undervalued to most people with what he's doing here. And I'm glad the Academy recognized him because he's so good. And he's also so funny. Like you just can't you can't take it away from him. Like he was so hesitant to do this because he didn't know if he could do an American accent. And he's like, Sorkin didn't really help me at all. Like he was like, Sorkin did not calm me down because he's like massive. He's like, it's a Boston guy who studied in California. I have no idea what that accent is, and Sorkin didn't either. So we just kind of made it up as we went along. But like I adore his we talked about last week where he's like Derringer's a gun, Dellinger's a bank robber, and he's like Derringer's a gun, Dellinger's a bank robber, and the judge and I are not related is a great line. And he's like when the judge first was, he's like, father no I think he's so great. But I think the thing at the moment for me where Sacha Baron Cohen cements his Oscar nominations are firstly when he and Hayden have their back and forth where he is like, I've read every piece of paper you published. And they have that back and forth and that revelation.
You're a great writer.
To me where this
vague non-modifiers and the whatever he says.
But the thing that I think I love most is his final bit on the when he's on the stand and he does his bit where he's just like, we do it every 4 years when we reelect a new president, where it's like dismantling the government, and where he's like, I've come to set a child at variance with his father, and he's like, no, he said that, Jesus Christ, and he like basically just breaks down the entire thing. But the moment, it's the only edit in the movie I don't love because I almost want more, is at the very end of his thing where he's like, do you believe that? I'm surprised you even have to think about it. He goes, would you give me a moment, friend? I've never been put on trial for my thoughts before. And I think that's an incredible line that's delivered incredibly. And then it fades to black and you're like, fuck no, I want more. I'm like, I want more of this because he's so good in that scene. You're like so sad that scene's over.
That's true. The thing that sucks though, and I'm glad that like that it's worn off now, but that moment I feel like would have had more punch if it wasn't like the scene that was used in every single trailer for this movie. Like it was the button for every single trailer. So it was already burned into my brain by the time I saw it because you and I both watched the trailers for these movies probably about 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, great moment. And we're kind of just flopping around here, but
we'll just jump around.
I don't think this is a movie we really need to talk about sequentially anyway.
No.
Because
I do want to jump a little bit back from that moment that ties in the first moment. I want to talk about Ramsey Clark, someone we haven't brought up yet.
No, that's fair. I want to just stick on this for a second,
Sure,
though. I'm going to jump back to a moment you've already talked about, which is the Hayden Hoffman confrontation.
Fair.
Which is like I was thinking about this. I was trying to figure out what my favorite scene of Chicago 7 is, and I think my 2 contenders are either the opening, because I think the opening is just so perfect, and I love the opening so much. Or it's the Hayden Hoffman confrontation, which I think is like just the thesis of the movie, and it's really, to me, like that's the real trial. It's essentially it's ideals versus practicality. Hayden is the practical one, and Hoffman has the ideals, and that's where like they go head to head. And I'm kind of also combining that in with I love their confrontation, and then immediately after. I love Rylance confronting Eddie Redmayne, Tom Hayden, and like giving him the cross-examination where then we also get that. Like that's like 20-30 minute stretch of film is just so good.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I think that it's also like funny enough, they're both in Les Mis and they have no moments together, and like they're both not good in Les Mis. So like to then see them together in this and get to interact.
I'm not gonna say SBC is bad in Les Mis. I actually think he's one of the few things I like about Les Mis.
Regardless, I think that their chemistry here is great. Do not let Cody ever watch this episode, by the way, because he'll hate you for your take and that. But I think that like their chemistry here is electric. Their back and forth is phenomenal. And I also love his chemistry with Rylance. Especially like when they're first all together in that like
who are we talking about? Sorry, I kind of zoned out.
SBC and Rylance. Their chemistry, where they're at the beginning and they're talking about the trial and stuff like that, and like he and Rylance just don't get along in that room, like because Rylance you could tell kind of prefers Redmayne. But like they're having their whole thing, and he's like, "You're a wild card, I don't like you," but Rylance is like being the adult about it, like, and it's I love their entire interactions. So
great.
So at the beginning of the movie, we get Ramsey Clark, not in the movie, but we hear a lot of talk about Ramsey Clark, and then he shows up later. And I love that moment where they're like, and William Kunstler just showed up, and then they go get Ramsey Clark to be their key witness. A great cameo, really. It's like 2 scenes that he's in. Michael Keaton is so freaking good.
Yeah.
And he like crushes it. And like I love when Rylance rapid fire questions at him and Keaton's just like, yes. Yeah. Like it's one word that he repeats over and over and over. But every single yes, you can hear Keaton. I just need to take a second because Michael Keaton is truly one of my favorite actors. I love Michael Keaton. I think he's an incredibly talented actor who can make any piece of material.
Like I think I agree with you. I just feel like knowing you, like you should. Yeah. I feel like you should.
I'm working through a lot of his stuff. I'm like getting to some of the big ones.
Like you need to watch more like the 80s, 90s stuff. Watch Mr. Mom. I
do need to see Mr. Mom.
Mr. Mom is dated, but like Keaton's great in it. It's like it's very like.
My parents love Mr. Mom. But I love him in the 2010s. His dramatic work is phenomenal, especially here. Where it's just he can do so much with so little. Where like where Rylance is like basically giving him the pitch to come in. He's like, "Why didn't you come to me first? Like, what took you so long?" And it's just like this great understated, just what took you so long. And I just feel like I should be your star witness. And like basically like being like, I've been waiting for you to do that. And they're like, you can't do this. Like, to hell I can. Like, I love it. And down to the end where they're like, where that's why I think he's such great casting. Is you need someone that you would believe Langella would revere and respect, and Keaton brings that, and he sits there and and Langella's like, "I'm gonna have to hold you in contempt." He's like, and just Keaton with the head shake gets down and he goes, "Get to work on the appeal," and leaves, and you're just like, "Fuck." Like that's the moment where you're like where you're like they have hope that they can win, and when that's gone, all hope is lost. Keaton can't save them. No one can. Keaton's great.
And I don't know about you. I didn't know anything about this going into the movie. I had literally never heard of this. The only person who I had heard of about this movie was Abby Hoffman, because Abby Hoffman is he's not in the movie.
I am surprised you didn't know about Tom Hayden, knowing your classic movie love.
Why would I know about Tom Hayden?
He's the longtime husband of Jane Fonda and like the father of a lot of her children.
Oh, so, I mean that makes knowing that now. Wait,
yes.
When was he married? When was he dating Jane Fonda?
Well, they were married, my guy.
I mean, but when did they start dating is what I'm trying to figure out. The reason I'm asking is because I know Jane Fonda was like very big into the Vietnam War protests.
So Tom Hayden was married. He married Jane Fonda in 1973, and they divorced in 1990.
But when
they
did
were together for decades.
When did they start dating, though? Is what what I'm trying to figure out is, were they dating by the time this movie, like when this movie set? Is what I'm trying to figure out.
No, they started dating in 1971.
Okay. Well, when is this movie explicitly set?
68.
Fair.
It is.
I mean, it's the 6-day convention, but the trial has because by the time the trial happens, like
it would not take them 4 years, though.
Well, Ramsey Clark has already dismissed the trial, right? Like, and then the election's already happened. Like, so that at least has to be 69 at the very least, because we see them put up Nixon's portrait.
Ramsey Clark left office in 1967.
But I'm saying, Nixon doesn't take office.
January 20th, 1969 is when he left the role of the Attorney General.
And Nixon, and that's what I'm saying. Nixon doesn't take office until 69, and even then, they still have to put
the trial. The trial probably does take place in 1969 because this trial does not take 3 years to cover the whole thing. Like this movie, the trial does not last 3 years. It probably lasts a year. It's probably 1970 when they finally end it and do a mistrial and stuff like that. So yeah.
Okay. So the film ends on February of 1970. I just looked into that, and the final scene of the film takes place in 1970.
Okay, but yeah, they got married in 73. They started dating in 71, and they were married for almost 20 years. So that's like her longest relationship with Tom Hayden and Jane Fonda.
That's fair.
But anyway. Yeah. Fun fact about Ramsey Clark. Michael Keaton, when he played the role of 68, Ramsey Clark, when he at the time of this trial, was 42 years old. So definitely aged up for the movie.
That's fair. What I was gonna say was, do you know why I knew who Abby Hoffman was?
I do not.
This is not the first Best Picture nominee to feature Abby Hoffman. And the first film was a Best Picture winner. Do you know what it is?
Have I seen it?
Yes. He is only in one scene of the movie.
Oh, interesting.
Or his character, I should say. Or the character, the person portraying him. The character of Abby Hoffman is only in one scene.
Oh, okay. Is it Patton? Probably not.
No. I mean, he literally, do you think he just, like, while the trial was going on, you think it was just
wait, so I'm confused. Is Abby Hoffman a character in the movie, or is Abby Hoffman playing a character in the movie?
Abby Hoffman is a character in the Best Picture winner. He was already dead by the time the Best Picture winner came out.
Oh, okay. Fair enough then. Milk. No, I'm kidding. That's not a Best Picture winner. No, I'm trying to think of political movies that like he could have been in. That one picture.
It's not a political film. It is not.
Oh,
okay.
then,
It's a film that has a lot of politicians in it, but it's not a political film.
it's Best Picture winner. Oh, is it
famously has a lot of not actors playing politicians.
Oh,
but has portrayals of a lot of different politicians in it. But not actors playing them. CGI politicians.
Just tell me.
In what movie do they CGI Lyndon B. Johnson and ask him and say that he would like to take a look at somebody's buttocks?
Is he in Forrest Gump?
Yeah. Well, the character of Abby Hoffman is in Forrest Gump because there's a scene where Forrest Gump goes up to, is in Washington, D.C., and he's like at a Vietnam protest and like gets ushered on up to stage. And he talks about this guy who liked to say the F word a lot. And it's Abby Hoffman. And he gives a speech with Abby Hoffman, and Forrest gives the speech. And then Abby Hoffman's like, that was beautiful, man. But Forrest doesn't actually get to give the speech because the microphone's cut out. And then that's when he sees Jenny, like, all in the Washington Monument, and that's how he reunites with Jenny, and yada, yada, yada. You don't need to know all this. But anyway, how did we get here?
We were
Ramsey
talking
Clark.
about Ramsey Clark.
Yes,
which I think we're done with that part.
The second best cameo of 2020.
Who do you? Oh, you go Melina first. I still think he is the best cameo of 2020.
That's fair. I think Melina in like Promising Young Woman is just so good, and it's probably my favorite scene of that movie.
Right. So I think one of the big things we need to talk about this movie is Take the Hill. Is that whole section.
Yeah.
Because like I think I think that to me is the point of this movie where Sorkin really I think this makes it where it's like this and Molly's Game are really close, where I think is the better of the two jobs of him as a director. I might give the edge this because of Take the Hill, which I think is a very well-directed sequence. A lot of tension.
I think this whole movie is very well-directed. I just wish that the cinematography and lighting wasn't so, dreary. I wish this
What I think is what's funny is this movie was nominated for cinematography and not Best Director.
Yeah. No, I agree. Here's the thing. I think you and I both agree that the nominations movie really deserved to win more than any other.
Best film editing.
Best editing. I think this movie is immaculately edited.
Alan Baumgarten is a great editor who deserved an Oscar for this movie. I think though, it's shot pretty. I think it's shot pretty well. I think the cinematography nomination is weird. I do want to say just for 1 second, if you remember, here's the thing. I'm fascinated by the 2020 Oscar race. I remember living it. I love that whole. I think it's wild. Do you remember how many times Sorkin was nominated for director at a precursor, and none of us really believed he was going to get it? I remember me and you were like, I don't know if he'll get it. Something's going to happen. He's not going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he didn't get it, and it was Vinterberg for another round. And I'm still very happy that Vinterberg has it.
Well, I think you and I were both like, the directing branch is not going to respect Sorkin.
No, they won't.
And we were right. But we didn't expect it to be Vinterberg. I think
that's the thing we both. That's the thing we both definitely got wrong. I don't remember. I think we thought it was Regina King who was going to get in.
Yeah, I remember thinking that Regina King was going to make it. But anyway.
It is wild. Sorkin did get the DGA nomination for Best Director, though, fun fact.
That's funny.
He got in and lost his job, but Sorkin was recognized by the DGA for Best Director. And then Regina King, Florian Zeller, and Rana Balak all lost Best First Step Feature to Darius Marder for Sound of Metal, which is bullshit. Anyway. Yeah, so I think the Take the Hill is so well directed, super tense. I think that Jeremy Strong's really good in this. I think the person who we haven't talked about yet, who's only in it a little bit, but also really good. And I think we both said it when this first came out. If this movie was younger, this would have been Allison Janney. I think Caitlin Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Who is in Succession, I believe, is her big thing.
No, she's not in
Yeah.
Succession. I wish she was in
Yes, she is.
Succession.
No, she is in Succession.
She's in Succession. Where is she in Succession?
She plays Tabitha in Succession.
Holy crap! I didn't even realize she's the lady Kieran Culkin is not having sex with.
Oh,
he
well,
could be having sex with her, and he's not.
Oh, well, there you go. But yeah,
she looks so different in this than she does in Chicago 7 that I like straight up did not realize it was her because her hair and her face and her. Now I'm just convinced this woman is a really great actress because those are two completely different characters. She does them very well. But yes, you're right. In this movie, she would have been Janny.
Definitely, that's a very Janny role. But you watch this part and like her introduction to Jerry Rubin is one of the most blatant Sorkinisms ever. And I love that it finally made its way into one of his movie scripts because I don't believe this Sorkinism is in any of the other movies until now. But it's used in The West Wing. I think it's in Lies, Damn Lies, and Statistics. Is the episode where because Margaret says it to Leo. It's the you know why they only eat one egg for breakfast in France because in France one egg is enough, which is I think a joke that he just really loves, and I loved it in The West Wing. I don't love it as much here, but that's because I've seen The West Wing. I think it's a little cheesy.
I also think like beyond that, it kind of feels like Sorkin trying to just work it in a little bit. It feels a little out of nowhere.
It does.
Like I'm not going to complain because I think this movie's awesome. But like, it's a little nitpick.
It's a tiny little nitpick, a little itty bitty one. But no, I think she's great. I think that I think that Jeremy Strong does a good job of that too. Where I love the confrontation he has with JGL afterwards, where he's like, "You should send a lady to ensorcell me," and Sacha Baron Cohen like looks at me, he's like, "Ensorcell." What
the way he says the word ensorcell is just so funny to me. Ensorcell me. Jeremy Strong, man. He's so good.
Freaking and I think there's the reactions by JGL and SBC in that moment that make that moment work. It's their instant where they're like,
"Stop taking things away from Kendall Roy. He is the eldest boy."
That's probably why he's not good. Anyway, but he is good in this.
Stop laughing on Jeremy Strong. I hate it.
So the thing that I think was I think the interesting part to this in terms of characters and writing, I think this is the part where I'm going to get specifically into the writing and the differences, because this is I think what would interest you most is Sorkin toned Hoffman down a lot for the movie. Judge Julius Hoffman from real life, because apparently in real life Hoffman was more arrogant, more racist, and more outwardly like I don't give a fuck about these guys. And when asked why he did it, Sorkin says, "I'm afraid it would border on parody and propaganda, and people would not believe that that was a real person if he played it the way he actually was." And I'm like, interesting.
I kind of get that. I think if he was more cartoony, you would think it was like hammed up for the movie.
Yeah. In real life as well for Hoffman here. Hoffman treats Bobby Seale even worse in real life.
Oh.
He toned it down for the movie because of the Hoffmanness. But in the real trial, Seale was exactly as seen.
Judge Julius Hoffman and not Abby.
Yeah, Judge. Yes, and the judge and I are not related. But Bobby Seale was gagged and chained. They did actually do that. They imply it only happened once for a short time in the movie, but it was actually something that happened many times over the course of 2 months. That in the movie, it's like apparently the egregious nature. They're like, "Oh, shames of prosecution, mistrial, separation for him," but that didn't happen because he was first bound and gagged on October 29th, 1969, and he had to appear in court that way every day until his trial was severed on November 5th, 1969. So they also show that Fred Hampton's murder is the reason for Steele's outburst. However, Hampton's death occurred after Steele's trial had already been severed and he was no longer present in court. Daphne O'Connor was not an undercover agent assigned to Rubin in real life. Richard Schultz, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, they said that in real life he was fully in support of the prosecution on a personal level and when asked, he firmly refuted the idea that he stood when the names of the war casualties were read aloud. He was like, I did not do that. Schultz was very much like, nope, fuck these guys. So Schultz is a way worse person in real life. JGL makes him look a lot better. And the other big plot difference I have, I'm keeping one of my back.
Can you imagine, like, how terrible of a person you have to be to when a movie makes you look better than you actually were to just want to be like, no, that didn't happen. Like, you could not, like, take me to Guantanamo and get the truth out of me at that point. Like,
right.
I would just lie. I would say, yep, movie's accurate. Go.
So David Dellinger, who is I believe John Carroll Lynch.
Yeah. We haven't talked about it.
He's very good.
Very good. So good in this movie.
Very good. His best scene though is entirely fake. Never happened. Where he hits a court officer. That never happened. In fact, he remained peaceful when a court officer hit one of his kids in the courtroom.
Why the heck did the court officer hit one of his kids?
I don't know.
Fair. John Carroll Lynch rules. Can we just say, dude is like just a hidden MVP. Like Zodiac, Fargo, this, The Founder. Like, dude just always kills it. Love me some John Carroll Lynch.
True. Frank Langella said that he said the only other time he felt pure joy in playing someone who is just such an irreprehensible villain was when he played Skeletor. He says that this and Skeletor are the only two people he's ever played where he was like, this is just so fun to be this terrible of a person.
I thought you were going to say Nixon.
No, he said Skeletor. He literally says on an NPR program that he believes Judge Julius Hoffman is comparable to Skeletor for him in terms of how he played the role.
I really want to watch Masters of the Universe now, just to see how he plays Skeletor.
Yeah. So yeah. I think the only thing we really have left to talk about is the ending.
Yeah. Which I'll let you take the reins on this.
So everyone hates the ending. Or a lot of people hate the ending. It's the big thing that people don't like when they read the names aloud. And here I have finally found the ace in the hole, folks. When people say this is so much of a Sorkinism, it can't be a thing. It's such a bad choice to end the movie on this. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, in real life, Rennie Davis not only kept the notebook, but he did, in fact, read the names out loud in the courtroom, exactly as the ending says. It is a real thing that did, in fact, happen. The only thing is that he did not read it. Dellinger read it. It wasn't Redmayne. It was John Carroll Lynch's character who actually read all the names out loud. And that he only got about a page and a half down before Hoffman silenced him and held him in contempt of court and got him to stop and did not allow him to finish. But that did happen. The end of the movie did happen. Almost exactly as seen, except it was Dellinger and not Tom Hayden. So, fuck you all. It actually happened. Fuck off.
Okay, now I need to do this and figure out that Desi Arnaz actually did call J.S. Kerr over.
Okay. No, the other thing is, the other element to this is that Abby Hoffman, apparently this was planned. They planned to do this, just like they said in the movie. Abby Hoffman, while the names of the dead are read, draped over the table flags for both America and Viet Cong. Because they read the names of everyone who died. Not just American soldiers, Viet Cong soldiers too. So he draped flags over the defendant's table for both. Both were held in like serious contempt of court for that. Dellinger and Hoffman, who apparently were severely in cahoots on that one. I don't know. I like the ending. I don't hate it. I think it hammers home
problem with the ending.
I think it hammers home the point that they keep making throughout the thing, where Rennie's like, when Tom asks him what he's doing, he's like, I'm writing down the names. He's like, why? He's like, to remind us what we're fighting for, to remind me what we're doing all this for. And I think that ending is using that to remind the audience and everyone else that it's not about them, it's about the people that they did this for.
I also think it's like, it's the moment for, this is like Hayden's kind of, I don't want to say redemption arc, but it's like Hayden making up for the fact that he stood up for the judge earlier, and he was the only one to stand up for Julius Hoffman after he chained and gagged Bobby. And that then this is like, basically, this is Hayden kind of surrendering and going, this is more important than practicality. Like, because practically getting the shorter sentence, but he basically put away that. And like, I think it's the big like character shift for Hayden. I think Hayden is really the only character who significantly changes throughout the movie.
I agree. I think that everyone else is sort of examined in a way where it's like where they're sticking to their guns and what they believe. I do think Tom Hayden gets the most change. Yeah. Him and Rylance, really. Because I think Rylance at the beginning of this trial, at the beginning of this, like, there's no such thing as a political trial. And by the end, he's like, is this case a political trial? Yes. Like, I feel like
the difference is the change in Rylance is basically just from treating this like a case and treating this like a passion statement. Whereas the difference in Hayden is, I think it's a bigger shift because it goes from basically a fundamental belief that you can achieve things through the practical, more conventional methods to no, sometimes you need to go outside of the system.
And I would also say that Abby Hoffman has a little bit of a change. That while characteristically he still has that like bravado, there's a reason they put him on the stand. And I think that's part of his character arc is being able to he's always been good at like speaking, but to like articulate, like to actually and not be mean and not be snarky and not be an asshole. Like he learns in that Tom Hayden fight, he does learn to be like Tom, and he takes cues from Tom in that way.
I'm going to push back on that. I would argue Hoffman always had that ability. It's just that it was just in that scene that is when he decided to use it. I think he could have done, I think it was everyone else's reaction to Abby that changed. I don't think it was actually Abby Hoffman that changed. I think it was everyone else that changed and realized like that they should take him seriously. I think that's the difference for me.
Here's my last thing to talk about then with this movie then is when they talk about what happened to everyone. And I this is no longer about the movie, but about real life. Do we think Abby killed himself or he was murdered?
Okay, we're gonna have to go into a rabbit hole to answer that. I was not expecting this to come up. But let's figure this out. Let's look into the circumstances of that.
So, because I know Tom Hayden says that he killed himself. Tom Hayden's like he killed himself. But I don't know if I believe he did, because Abby Hoffman to me, I'm sure had a lot of like psychological issues, and you could tell. But like, I don't know if he was suicidal. I feel like there's a lot of life in that.
If your statement about like a person is based solely off of watching a portrayal of that person in a movie, I don't know if that.
Like, I'm saying for like
what 2 years of that person's life.
Well, what I'm saying is in general about Abby Hoffman, in general, his stand-up stuff, the things you know about him, the things he believed in, you could tell he had a lot of like intense feelings. But I also wonder, I don't know if you ever, I guess I don't know, you wouldn't get that from Robin Williams really either. But like, if you look at Abby Hoffman's work, I don't know if he really believed that he ever had any hands.
200 pages of handwritten notes were nearby, many detailing his moods. He had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder in 1980. He had recently changed treatment medications, So that's part of it. And was reportedly depressed when his 83-year-old mother was diagnosed with cancer. She died in 1996 at 90. Some who were close to him claimed that he was also unhappy about reaching middle age, combined with the fact that the liberal upheaval of the 1960s had produced a conservative backlash in the 1980s. In 1984, he had expressed dismay that the current generation of young people were not as interested in protesting and social activism as the youth had been in the 60s. His death was officially ruled a suicide. Hoffman's fellow Chicago 7 defendant David Dellinger disputed this. Oh, Dellinger disputed this. He said, "I don't believe for one moment the suicide thing," and said that Hoffman had numerous plans for the future. However, the coroner stood by the ruling, saying there's no way to take that amount of phenobarbital without intent. It was intentional and self-inflicted.
Interesting. I see.
Okay, now I'm starting to go the other way. Now
Dellinger, if Dellinger's like absolutely not.
But why would Hayden go the other way then? Why would Hayden influence?
You know what, Tom Hayden? I don't mean to be like a tinfoil conspiracy person, but Tom Hayden was part of the political system, like
at that time.
In the late 70s.
You're right.
I don't know.
We need to stop this because we're gonna look like psychopaths if we keep going down this route.
I don't know. I don't know.
That's fair. Let's move on.
So the movie comes out. It comes out on Netflix. It's the second most streamed movie over its debut weekend. Higher than usual for a more serious entry Netflix title. It finished 10th the following week. It was the 8th most watched straight-to-streaming title of 2020. In Variety reported the film among Netflix's most watched Oscar-nominated titles, assigned it an audience appeal score of 58 out of 100. All right, when it comes to the critical responses, it's time to jump into this. Is actually, I believe, I think Moneyball's the last one where we had Ebert to give a rating.
Yeah, because he died in like 12-13. So yeah.
Yeah, so that I just realized we didn't get to talk about it on Steve Jobs and Molly's game. Yeah, Roger Ebert no longer gets to shit on Sorkin or praise Sorkin, which is unfortunate. Because I did look forward to seeing what Ebert had to say about each one. I feel like Ebert would not have loved this one that much. But maybe.
No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say because Ebert changes as a person. Like, there's a big difference between 70s Ebert and 90s Ebert, and a big difference between 90s Ebert and 2010s Ebert. So, like, or not 2010s because there's really not much of a 2010s Ebert, but like 2000s Ebert. So, like,
sure,
it's hard to say. But anyway, rankings
time. Chicago. Hold on, we're not even done. I didn't get to go to the reception, you fucker.
Right.
Chicago Sun-Times gave it a perfect score, so that's one of the best movies of that year. IndieWire was like Sorkin directs his own work incredibly well. Sacha Baron Cohen was widely regarded as the show stealer for everyone. Jeremy Kagan, who was the writer and director of a 1987 film called Conspiracy: The Trial of the Chicago 8, which was based more factually on historical events. And Sorkin is a gifted director and brilliant writer, but I'm concerned that the generations who did not live through this time will now think of this version as what happened, and it wasn't and isn't. It is an interpretation. They said Sorkin takes creative liberties with history that ends up distorting it. Bobby Seale, the Black Panther defender who was infamously bound and gagged in the courtroom, actually managed to repeatedly wriggle out of the physical restraints the government put on him. And the film portrays the government as effectively silencing him. The Chicago Reader gave the film 3 stars and observes that it also shows Fred Hampton, chairman of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party, supporting Seale until police killed him in his home. And that the on-screen timeline of these events, however, are different, and that is a little The Times of Israel said that it was great because of Sacha Baron Cohen, but that they also criticized it for obscuring and otherwise erasing the Jewish heritage of much of the Chicago 7, particularly Hoffman and Rubin, which is an interesting thing I didn't think about. There was a lot of talk of praising Fred Hampton's inclusion in the movie. But yeah, at the end of the day, the Trial of Chicago 7 appeared on 39 critics' year-end top 10 lists, including first place on 3 of them. Earned 6 nominations at the 93rd Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Supporting Actor for Sacha Baron Cohen, and Best Original Screenplay for Aaron Sorkin. It further received 3 BAFTA Award nominations for Best Picture, Best Original Screenplay, and Best Film Editing. At the 78th Golden Globe Awards, the film received 5 nominations, including Best Picture Drama, and won Sorkin the Golden Globe for Best Screenplay. And at the 27th SAG Awards, it won Outstanding Performance by a Cast in a Motion Picture. Once again, I like to point out that the Golden Globes adore Aaron Sorkin and have nominated him for everything he has ever done. But when he wins, it's usually an indication that he has a strong chance to at least be the front runner. It is his third, I want to say his third Golden Globe. Yes, it is his third Golden Globe, winning for The Social Network, Steve Jobs, and now The Trial of Chicago 7 today. It is his last Golden Globe win. We'll talk about him at the Golden Globes again next week for the most recent time. But yes, Aaron Sorkin was nominated for a DGA for Best Director. The film was pretty well received. I think Baron Cohen was really the only person ever truly in the running once they officially designated him supporting. Though I remember Yaya and Rylance and Redmayne were all at one point or another considered as possible contenders, and Langella too. We're all considered possible contenders. So yeah, I really like this movie a lot. For me, it comes in.
I love this movie.
I do love this movie. I would say that it is, if we are removing Hamilton from the equation, it is my favorite film of the year 2020. It would be my number one of that year. I would award it Best Picture. I think it should have won Best Original Screenplay, though I do think Promising Young Woman is a deserving winner as well. I think that Sacha Baron Cohen is not my choice to win in that class, but I would have loved it. I think it should have won editing. I think that the film is supercharged and relevant. You can I'm sure you can take shots at it for being a little toothless at times, especially with the Black Panther Party stuff, which is very fair. I think Judas and the Black Messiah goes into that better and does it better. But again, I think that's all about perspective and like the people in charge of the stories. So I think Judas and the Black Messiah was always going to be the better version of that story, because it's supposed to be told from that perspective. But I think Trial of Chicago 7 is really well done, really well acted. It is really well directed. I think I'm on the side that this is Sorkin's best directed work. I think it is the best movie he has directed for himself. It's the best time he's done as a director. And I think that he probably should have stopped directing after making this, because this is a home run hitter of a movie to end your career on two, and let other people do your stuff. But anyway, it's great. I'd rank it as my fourth favorite Sorkin.
All right. First up, back to what you said. This goes back, like, there are three movies consistently compete for my favorite of 2020. And it's this, it's Promising Young Woman, and it's One Night in Miami. And right now I'm feeling One Night in Miami. But this is creeping. It's creeping. And I do think I give this, I'm now thinking I give this picture for Promising Young Woman, though I still give that screenplay. Because I think that screenplay is phenomenal. But
I do give Emerald Fennell director in that year.
Emerald Fennell is also my winner for director. But anyway, I go back and forth. I think this movie is phenomenal, though. I love it. I think Sorkin is a great director. I think he has directed 3 great movies. He is 3 for 3 in terms of cinema. This is the best movie he directed. This is the best film he directed. And I think it's his best work as a director. It's hard to say because I think Molly's Game is really well directed, but I think I'm going to go with this. I think this is his best work as a director. So, that out of the way, time to rank?
Time to rank. I would put it number 4, below Moneyball, above The American President on my list. So it would be 9 Charlie Wilson's War, 8 Malice, 7 Molly's Game, 6 A Few Good Men, 5 The American President, 4 The Trial of Chicago 7, 3 Moneyball, 2 Steve Jobs, and 1 The Social Network.
I would put this also at number 4, though I believe, have a different set of 4. Or sorry, no, I have this at number. You know what? No, I'm going to stick with my guns. I am putting this at number 4.
So we have the exact same top 4, I think.
Yeah, because you don't have American President in your top 4, right?
No, the American President is my number 5.
Yeah, because what I would do is at number 9, Malice, number 8, Charlie Wilson's War, number 7, The American President, number 6, Molly's Game, number 5, Few Good Men, number 4, Trial of Chicago 7, 3 Moneyball, 2 Steve Jobs, and 1 The Social Network.
All right, so there it is. There you have it. We are moving on. We have one more left to Sorkin with Being the Ricardos. We will eventually come back to Sorkin. Here's the thing that I think we've talked about. If there's ever a new entry into something, we'll come back and do a one-off on it to keep that series like relevant. But like, if Sorkin ever comes back, we'll come back to Sorkin. But for now, Being the Ricardos will be our final chapter. Sorkin. That's a disappointment. For now, until
A, not a disappointment because it's a great movie. B, that is going to be our best episode of the Sorkin series.
Probably.
Because
I want to know what he's doing next. You know what I mean? Like,
is the politician still happening?
I don't know. I feel like the politician at this point is like not going to happen because like, what's the point in telling that story anymore? We've had more ridiculous ones that have changed it. So it's like, is that worth telling? Is that a story worth telling anymore? I don't know. Is the A Few Good Men remake happening with Rob Lowe anymore? I don't know. So
I don't want that.
I don't want that either. You know what I want? I want his fucking West Wing sequel he keeps promising. I want his West Wing limited series sequel that he keeps telling people he's doing. And I also want The Social Network 2, which he keeps teasing he's writing. So do The Social Network 2 or do The West Wing 2. Do the things you keep saying, or at least tell us what you're doing next, Aaron. Damn you. Should we tell people what we're doing next?
Let's save that for next episode. Let's save that for Being the Ricardos.
We'll save that for Being the Ricardos. If you're interested in knowing what we're doing after this, it's how many movies are in that? Just to give them a tease, how many movies are in the thing we're doing?
I believe
6 or 5.
I believe it's 7, but I'm gonna double check
because we're not doing the TV movie.
Yes, we've decided not to do a TV movie, which should give you a hint that it's someone who has done it. I'll even say this: it's a director. Is the director.
No, we're doing a director.
And we are not doing the one TV movie he directed. And he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 movies.
Okay, so it's going to be a quick 6-week run, and we'll leave it at that. I'll even give you one further hint. I have seen 0 of these 6 movies. So it's going to be one that it's a Boatman series. And then the one after that is I don't even remember we're doing something that is going to be interesting for both of us, but we'll talk about that in 7 weeks. So we'll see you guys next week when we talk about Javier Bardem being great and Nicole Kidman being fine.
Shut up. Being the Ricardos rules, and we're going to find out about how much it rules next week.